is Alicia Marie. I am the founder and managing director of PeopleBiz. PeopleBiz is a consulting, training, and coaching organization that offers all types of programs for both personal and professional growth. We have many communication courses here at PeopleBiz. Typically, we are customizing communication courses for organizations, but also you get a little taste of some of what we teach in communication in the Business Accelerator program, in our Leading Change program, and in the coaching clinic. The model that I'm going to show you, we typically use in the beginning of any of our communication courses. If you think about communication is huge. We're talking about a lot of things, aren't we? We're talking about listening, giving feedback, candor, asking great questions, honesty, reading body language, tone. So we're talking about a lot of things when we talk about communication. This is at the foundation of understanding what can give you access to powerfully communicating with another human being. For example, if you're a manager and you're attending the coaching clinic, Coaching Skills for Managers, we would start with this model. You're there to learn how to engage your employees, but first we have to work on what's your point of view around communication and how are you viewing communication. So we would start with this model. We call this model the monologue versus dialogue model. Now I want you to think about, how did you learn communication? When you first learned to speak, at 8 months, 9 months, a year and a half, how did you learn how to speak? What was your motivation? It was to get what you want, wasn't it? The baby drops the bottle, and eventually, as a baby, you're going to learn how to say bottle so you can get your bottle back. So your first model of language, your first model of communication is all about getting what you want. So I'm going to add some more words here. How about command and control? Command and control, tell and direct. In this first model, we're looking at the world from a very young age. Think about being 2 and 3 years old. You're this high, and the world out there is really scary. You're a little person, and you're looking at the world out there. So the point of view, when you're operating in this model of communication, which there's nothing wrong with, it's the first model of communication, is it's me against the world. I have to figure out, little old me, how to get what I want from the world, from my parents, from what I see in my families, etc., etc. We can also add words here like persuade. Some of us are very good at persuasion, and it still exists in this model. We could use words like demand, or how about defending? Why defending? Because it's me and the world. When we're in this model of communication, it's all about protecting ourselves. In this world, you're right and they're wrong. And you clearly have a position. This is our first model of communication. There's nothing wrong with communicating from this place. You will. There will be times when your small child is crossing the street and what there is to do is to tell them very quickly to get out of the road. Yes? However, it doesn't really work that well in a lot of circumstances, as you can imagine. So what other model of communication is there? And why would we learn it? When we're in this model, me against the world, there's an experience of being alone. Yet all of us as human beings have a true desire to connect. So the reason we start to learn this other model of communication is because we want to relate and we want to connect to others. What else belongs in this model? How about collaboration? In which model would real listening happen? Can you even listen from this place where it's me against the world, where you have a position when it's about your point of view? You can't. Listening occurs in this model. When we're trying to get what we want, we're operating from the past. There's everything we know about how life is and how things have gone for us so far, and we're trying to get what we want. So we're operating from a body of knowledge, and we're operating from the past, even if the past was just yesterday. When you're engaging and connecting with another person, it happens in the present. What else would belong in this model? How about open? If you're not defending anything or attacking something, you're open. The experience most people have when they're in this model of communication, present, right here, right now, being curious, let's add that word, is one of vulnerability. Why? Because we realize that we have to stop trying to protect ourselves to truly relate to another person. So there is an experience of vulnerability. When you're motivated by wanting to connect, wanting to relate to another person, when you're standing in the present, you've given up defending yourself. You've given up protecting yourself. You are experiencing being vulnerable. That's where relationship occurs. That's how connection occurs. And you're no longer concerned about what am I going to say next, which is why you're listening. We're going to call this model dialogue. So guess what this model's called? Monologue. How often are we really in monologue? How many times in coaching sessions have I've asked a client, what could you go talk to your office manager about? And they say, I already know what they're going to say. I already know what they're going to say. Instead of, what is there for me to talk to my office manager about? What could I engage them in? So we would write the word engage here. I want to say something more about the experience so you can catch yourself when you're in monologue or dialogue. When you're in monologue, the experience is you're alone. I'm the only one who can do this. The experience is one of survival. You're trying to get what you want from your environment or from other people. Your experience is one of feeling threatened and almost feeling small. When you're present, willing to give up being right or wrong, willing to be here right now, just discovering what might be possible in this interaction with another human being, the experience is almost as if time does not exist, because you've given up the past. You're not focused on what you're going to say in the future. You're here right now. And it's almost as if time does not exist. The biggest objection I get from managers, for example, when I'm teaching this concept is, well, how will we get anything done if we're always talking? Well, here's what I want you to consider. When we're over in telling and directing, delegating, we're using authority, we're operating from a place of aloneness. How inclusive are we really being? How much impact do you really have on getting results? One of the things that we could add here is that inclusive, meaning including everyone, versus exclusive, where it's all about you. I will hear business owners or managers say, I need you to. That's a clear statement from Monologue. I need you to. I want you to. Go over and do. All of those are examples of being in Monologue. And then, managers are frustrated because they're not getting what it is they want. But yet, the objection is, it's going to take time to connect and relate and talk to people. I want to assert that real results, quick results, happen here. Have you ever had a conversation over and over and over again with someone? It's almost as if they're not listening. I've talked to them 5 times about this. Why aren't they getting it? Did you really talk to them, or did you tell them direct? Did you really talk to them, or were you just trying to get what you wanted? So when you stand in Monologue, the chances that you're going to have reoccurring conversations, the same conversation over and over and over again, are very, very good, costing you a lot of time and energy. When you're in dialogue, things happen very, very quickly. Why? Because you're here right now, engaging, collaborating, listening. And this time, you might hear something new because you're not standing in knowledge. This time, you might actually get the much needed feedback you needed to make everything work. This time, you may be willing to give up being right about something, allowing the other person to truly contribute to you. The experience you have when you're here is one of community or team. You have partners in communication. When you're actually in dialogue, you're partnering with someone around whatever it is that you're speaking about. Many of us are parents, and one of the interesting things that happens when people learn this concept of monologue versus dialogue is I'll get a phone call or an email later saying, wow, this really works wonderfully with my children. If you think about how we typically parent, we tell, we direct, we control. And we're not necessarily in a dialogue with our children. Why not be? Actually, children are much better at this. They're excellent at being curious. They're excellent at being present. Why? Because they have less past, right? So why not be in a dialogue with your child? You can have the same dialogue with your child around not, why not do drugs, as you can from over here, don't do drugs. Which one's going to be more effective? Think about it, when you engage the other person, they're now involved in the conversation. When you tell and direct, there's no engagement and there's no involvement. From over here, you can actually come to some agreements, some consensus, some alignment. Wouldn't that be better in your family and with your children? And so what I hear often after people learn this model is how much easier it is to manage and work with their teenagers, how much easier it is to speak to their spouse, and how much easier it is to simply be a parent. Every time I teach this model, no matter what communication course it is or who the group of people I have, I immediately start getting a lot of questions, a lot of fear-based questions. But how am I going to get what I want? But how am I going to get them to do what I need? But how am I going to get the results that I have to? This is going to cost me a lot of time. It can sometimes feel scary to let go of being in control. The idea is to practice, to discover what it actually feels like to be over here. To recognize that this may be all that you know, or you maybe only had a few experiences where you're really here. And so the idea is to catch yourself when you're in dialogue, when you're fully present with another person, when you're being curious, when you're allowing anything that they want to say, and you're waiting to respond. And noticing when you're in monologue, when your point of view is you have to get something or you have to survive something, and there's a presence of fear and aloneness. If you could just start to notice when you're in dialogue and when you're in monologue, you'll learn how to get access out of monologue and into dialogue when it really matters, like with your children or your employees or whoever it is you're engaging with on a daily basis.